Captain John Miller stood at the observation deck of the United Earth Space Command headquarters in Houston, his eyes fixed on the live feed from the Jupiter orbital cameras. The massive alien ship had appeared 3 days ago, positioning itself near the gas giant without any warning or communication. Its sleek silver hull reflected Jupiter's swirling storms, while smaller craft occasionally emerged from its hangars to patrol nearby space. "Still nothing?" John asked, his voice breaking the tense silence. Admiral William Hayes shook his head. "Not a word since they entered the system. Every nation has tried broadcasting welcome messages. The president is considering military options if this continues." As if responding to the admiral's words, screens across the command center suddenly flickered. The image of a slender, blue-skinned being appeared. Its 4 eyes blinked independently of each other, and a translator device was visible on what appeared to be its neck. "People of Earth," the alien spoke, its voice translated into perfect English. "We are the Veldorians, representatives of the Galactic Concordat. We come in peace and wish to extend an invitation." The room erupted in excited chatter. Humanity's first contact had finally arrived. 3 weeks later, John found himself aboard the UES Voyager, Earth's first true interstellar vessel. The ship had been quickly prepared for this historic journey to meet with the alien delegation properly. Dr. Lisa Kelly sat beside him, reviewing her notes on the limited information the aliens had shared. "Nervous?" John asked, noticing how Lisa's fingers tapped rapidly against her tablet. "Terrified and thrilled," she admitted with a small smile. "Everything I've trained for, and yet nothing could truly prepare us for this." The journey to Jupiter took only days with the Voyager's advanced engines. As they approached the massive alien vessel, John couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The alien ship was at least 30 times larger than their own, covered in lights and what appeared to be windows. "UES Voyager, you are cleared for docking in Bay 17, came the translated voice of their Veldorian contact. "Please follow the guidelights." The Voyager's pilot carefully maneuvered the ship toward an opening on the side of the enormous vessel. Blue lights pulsed along a path, leading them into a vast hangar where several other smaller alien ships were docked. "Remember the protocols," John reminded his crew as they prepared to disembark. "Respectful, curious, but cautious. We represent all of humanity now." When the airlock doors opened, John led the way. The atmosphere had been confirmed safe for humans, though slightly richer in oxygen than Earth normal. The first thing he noticed was the gravity, slightly lighter than Earth's, making each step feel bouncy and strange. 5 Veldorians waited for them. Up close, their blue skin had a slight shimmer to it, and their 4 eyes tracked movement with unsettling precision. They stood about a head shorter than the average human, with long, delicate fingers ending in pointed tips. "Welcome aboard the Stellar Harmony," said the central figure, bowing slightly. "I am Ambassador Pelvor. We are honored to welcome the first humans to travel beyond your solar system." "The honor is ours," John replied with a formal bow of his own. "I am Captain John Miller of the United Earth Space Command, and this is Dr. Lisa Kelly, our Chief Communications Specialist." Lisa stepped forward, making the greeting gesture they had been shown in the Veldorians' transmission. "We bring greetings from all people of Earth and look forward to learning about the Galactic Concordat." As they were led through the ship's corridors, John noticed something odd. The Veldorians kept a careful distance from the humans, and when John accidentally moved too quickly in one direction, the nearest alien flinched visibly. "They seem afraid of us," Lisa whispered as they were shown to their quarters. "Have you noticed? Their posture changes whenever we get close." John nodded slightly. "I caught that too. Strange considering they have the technological advantage. Their quarters were spacious and had been modified with human comfort in mind. The beds, chairs, and temperature controls all seemed designed based on human specifications from the information exchange." Later, during the formal dinner reception, John noticed more peculiarities. The Veldorian servers seemed nervous when approaching the human table, and conversations among aliens at nearby tables would stop when humans walked past. Lisa was deep in conversation with a Veldorian scientist when John overheard something that made him pause. Two aliens near the beverage station were speaking in what they probably thought was too low for humans to hear. Dangerous specimens. The fighting capabilities alone make them level 3 threats. The decision to invite them was controversial. Many systems opposed it. Necessary risk. Better to have them as allies than to wait until they develop independent space travel capabilities. You've seen the simulation models. John casually moved away, not wanting to alert them that he had overheard. He caught Lisa's eye across the room and gave her a subtle signal that they needed to talk. When they had a private moment, John shared what he'd overheard. "That's not all," Lisa added. "My conversation partner kept asking about our conflict resolution methods, particularly interested in how often humans resort to physical confrontation. When I mentioned boxing as a sport, he seemed genuinely horrified. They're afraid of us," John realized. But why? They're clearly more advanced. Their questions were partially answered the next day. During a tour of the ship's scientific facilities, a structural support beam suddenly broke loose during what appeared to be a malfunction. Without thinking, John pushed two Veldorians out of its path and braced his shoulder against the falling beam, redirecting its momentum enough that it crashed harmlessly to the side. The room went silent. The Veldorians stared at John with all four eyes widened. "Are you injured?" one finally asked, approaching cautiously. John rubbed his shoulder. "Just a bruise, nothing serious." The Veldorians exchanged looks of what appeared to be alarm. That impact force would have shattered a Veldorian's skeletal structure, the lead scientist explained. "Yet you appear minimally damaged." That evening, Ambassador Pelvor officially invited Earth to send a diplomatic delegation to the Galactic Concordat Central Station. "Your species is unique," Pelvor explained, choosing words carefully. "The Concordat has determined that humanity should be evaluated for potential membership." As John and Lisa prepared the Voyager for the return journey to Earth with the historic invitation, Lisa reviewed her notes from the trip. "They've classified Earth as something called a death world," she told John. "Apparently our gravity, atmospheric pressure, and even background radiation levels are on the high end of habitable planets. We've evolved under conditions that would be challenging for most intelligent life forms." John looked out at the stars. "So we're the scary aliens after all?" "It seems so," Lisa agreed. "And tomorrow we bring the news to Earth that we're being invited to join the galactic community, though I suspect not everyone out there is happy about it." John nodded thoughtfully. "Whatever waits for us out there, we'll face it together. All of humanity, taking its first real step into the stars." Little did they know that across the galaxy, news of humanity's invitation was already spreading, causing ripples of concern among dozens of alien civilizations who had never encountered a species quite like humans before. The Concordat Central Station hung in space like a massive metal flower. Its 5 petal-shaped sections extended from a central hub, each one housing representatives from different sectors of the galaxy. As the human diplomatic ship approached, Ambassador Susan Clark stood at the viewscreen, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. "Magnificent, isn't it?" she said to no one in particular. The pilot nodded. Hard to believe something that big was built in space. 3 months had passed since Captain Miller and Dr. Kelly's first contact with the Veldorians. Earth had been buzzing with excitement and fear ever since. Susan had been chosen to lead the diplomatic team due to her years of international negotiation experience, though nothing in her career had prepared her for representing humanity to an entire galaxy of alien species. The ship docked smoothly at one of the smaller bays designated for new arrivals. When the airlock opened, Susan led her team of 12 diplomats, scientists, and security personnel onto the station. They were greeted by a delegation of 6 different alien species, each more strange than the last. "Welcome to Concordat Central," said a tall, insect-like being with iridescent wings folded neatly behind its back. "I am Coordinator Trisnar, assigned to facilitate your integration. These are representatives from the Welcoming Committee." Susan noticed immediately how much space the aliens kept between themselves and the humans. It reminded her of John Miller's reports about the Veldorians' behavior. Their quarters were located in the outermost section of one petal, far from the central hub where most diplomatic activities took place. Susan made note of this but said nothing. The rooms themselves were comfortable enough, with gravity and atmosphere adjusted to Earth normal. "The Grand Assembly will formally receive you tomorrow," Trizanar explained. "Until then, please remain in this sector. Your access badges are limited for security purposes." After the aliens left, Jack Porter, Susan's security chief, ran a scan of their quarters. "We're being monitored," he said quietly, showing her his device. "Audio and visual in every room except the bathrooms." Susan nodded. "Expected, but good. To confirm, everyone stick to protocol. We're guests until proven otherwise." Later that evening, as Susan reviewed her notes for tomorrow's presentation, there was a soft knock at her door. She opened it to find a reptilian alien with copper-colored scales and vertical pupils. Unlike the others, this one entered her room without hesitation. "Ambassador Clark, I am Zixtal, junior representative of the Dravak Confederation. May we speak privately?" The alien glanced at the ceiling sensors. Susan led Zixtal to the bathroom and turned on the shower. "Will this provide enough cover?" The reptilian nodded. "Yes, listen carefully. Not all of us fear humanity's presence. Some see your potential as valuable." "Fear us? Why would advanced species fear humans?" Susan asked. Zixtal's scales shifted, color slightly. "Because you are from what we classify as a death world. Your planet's gravity, radiation levels, atmospheric pressure, and biological challenges have created a species with physical capabilities that alarm many concordant members." "That seems exaggerated," Susan replied. "Is it?" "Yesterday, one of your security team caught a falling container that would have crushed a Veldorian. Your people casually endure what would be lethal conditions for many species. There are rumors your kind can continue fighting even after sustaining injuries that would incapacitate others." Susan considered this information carefully. "So the distant quarters, the limited access—" "Precautions," Zixtal confirmed. "The Grand Assembly is divided on human membership. Be careful tomorrow. Some will try to provoke you to demonstrate human aggression." The next day, Susan and her team were escorted to the Grand Assembly Hall. The massive circular chamber contained representatives from 48 species. Tiered seating surrounded a central speaking platform where Susan would present humanity's case for membership. Grand Minister Ofthal, a tall being with pale skin and elaborate robes, called the assembly to order. "Today we welcome representatives from Earth, a newly contacted world seeking probationary membership in our concordat. Ambassador Clark will address the assembly." As Susan walked to the platform, she noticed many representatives leaning away or whispering to each other. The tension was palpable. She took a deep breath and began her carefully prepared speech. "Respected members of the Galactic Concordat, I bring greetings from Earth. We come seeking friendship, knowledge, and peaceful cooperation." She was halfway through when the interruption came. A delegate from the back stood up. "How can we trust a species evolved for aggression? Humans have waged constant war throughout their history." Before Susan could respond, another voice called, "Out." "They destroyed their own ecosystems before developing space travel." Grand Minister Ofthal raised a hand for silence. "Order, please. Ambassador Clark deserves a respectful hearing." Susan adjusted her approach. "Yes, humanity has made mistakes. We have fought wars and damaged our planet, but we have also created art, music, and literature that celebrates peace. We've developed medicine that extends life and eases suffering. We're learning from our errors." As she continued, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A support beam had collapsed, trapping several delegates. Without hesitation, 2 human security officers rushed forward. Jack Porter braced his shoulder under the beam, lifting it enough for the other officer to pull the aliens to safety. The hall went silent, watching Jack hold the heavy beam that would have required mechanical assistance for most species to move. Susan seized the moment. This is humanity. Yes, we are physically strong because our world demanded it. But we use that strength to protect, not just destroy. We offer the Concordat our strength, our determination, and our desire to learn and grow. The assembly broke into murmured conversations. Grand Minister Ofthal conferred with advisors before returning to the central position. The Assembly will recess to consider Earth's application. Ambassador Clark, your people's physical capabilities are impressive, but many questions remain about your suitability. Later, in a private chamber, Ofthal met with Susan alone. Your presentation was effective, Ambassador. But you must understand our concerns. Species with your physical capabilities have historically been problematic. Susan met his gaze steadily. Minister, humanity doesn't seek to dominate, only to participate. Judge us by our actions, not our potential for violence. Ofthal studied her. Perhaps. The Assembly has voted to grant Earth probationary membership for 1 standard year. During this time, human movement and activities will be monitored and restricted. Susan knew this was the best outcome they could hope for now. We accept these terms with gratitude. As she left the chamber, Zixtal was waiting in the corridor. Congratulations, Ambassador. Probationary status is better than most expected. But be careful. Those who oppose human integration will be watching for any mistake. Susan nodded. Then we'll have to be perfect, and perhaps show them that strength isn't something to fear, but to value when used wisely. That evening, as Susan sent her report back to Earth, she added a personal note. We've gained a foothold, but the real challenge begins now. These aliens don't just fear what we might do, they fear what we are. Our job isn't just diplomatic. Integration. It's showing an entire galaxy that humanity deserves its place among the stars. Across the station, Grand Minister Ofthal issued new security protocols regarding the human delegation and quietly ordered enhanced surveillance of all human activities. The cosmic dance had begun. 6 months passed since Earth received its probationary membership in the Galactic Concordat. Humans had begun spreading throughout Concordat space, though their movements remained restricted and closely monitored. The Earth Embassy on Concordat Central had become a hub of activity, with Commander Eric Rhodes overseeing security. Eric walked through the embassy's main hall, nodding to staff members as he passed. Unlike the early days when aliens would flinch at human proximity, many station residents now greeted humans with cautious curiosity rather than fear. Progress was happening, but slowly. Commander, you need to see this, said Linda Carter, his communications officer, approaching with a data tablet. Dr. West's research team just sent their weekly report. Eric reviewed the information and smiled. Dr. Alan West, leading human xenobiologist, had made significant breakthroughs in cross-species medicine. His team had developed treatments for 3 previously incurable alien diseases by applying human medical approaches in new ways. Forward this to Ambassador Clark immediately, Eric instructed. This is exactly the kind of positive contribution we need to highlight. Across the station in the medical district, Dr. West adjusted his equipment while his Veldorian assistant watched with all 4 eyes wide in amazement. The cellular regeneration rate is remarkable, the assistant commented. No other Concordat species could develop this treatment. Your comfort with genetic modification is unusual. Alan smiled. On Earth, we've been modifying genes to treat diseases for over 70 years. What seems risky to your people is standard practice for us. Another example of human adaptability, the assistant noted, making an entry in his personal log. Meanwhile, in the commercial sector, Mira Johnson was negotiating with a group of insectoid traders. Her small shipping company had grown rapidly in the past 4 months, outperforming many established alien businesses. 8 standard cycles for delivery is unacceptable, chittered the lead trader. No ship can make that route in less than 12. Mira smiled confidently. Human pilots can. We require less rest and can withstand higher acceleration forces than most species. My ships will deliver in 8 cycles or you pay nothing. The aliens exchanged glances before reluctantly agreeing to her terms. As they departed, one whispered to another, "These humans operate on a completely different timescale. No wonder they're disrupting established trade routes." Mira's success was not unique. Across Concordat space, humans were finding niches where their natural capabilities gave them advantages. Human workers could endure environmental conditions that other species found intolerable. Human engineers solved problems with creative approaches, that aliens found both brilliant and disturbing. Back at the Earth Embassy, Commander Rhodes was reviewing security footage when he noticed a pattern. Certain areas of the station were consistently marked as restricted for humans, even as other aliens moved freely through them. Additionally, whenever humans visited different worlds, they were subtly directed away from specific facilities. "They're hiding something," Eric told Ambassador Clark during their private weekly meeting. "I've cross-referenced the restricted zones. They all relate to either military installations or research facilities." Susan frowned. Zixtal mentioned something similar yesterday. Apparently, there's growing concern about our rapid integration. Some species are pushing for additional restrictions before our probationary period ends. "That's not all," Eric added, lowering his voice despite their secure room. "I've detected surveillance devices in our quarters that weren't disclosed in our security agreements. The monitoring is more extensive than they admitted." Before Susan could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The emergency system announced, "Structural failure detected in residential section 4. All residents evacuate immediately." Eric's communication device activated. "Commander, there's been an explosion in the residential area where most humans live. Possible attack." Susan and Eric rushed to the scene, finding chaos. A section of the station had been damaged, exposing several residential units to space. Emergency force fields contained the breach, but damage was extensive. Both humans and aliens were injured, trapped in damaged compartments. "Get emergency teams here now," Eric ordered his staff, then turned to a group of human civilians nearby. "I need volunteers for rescue operations." Without hesitation, several humans stepped forward. What happened next would be discussed throughout the Concordat for months to come. Humans entered areas with partial atmospheric loss, functioning in conditions that would incapacitate most species. They lifted debris that would normally require mechanical assistance, freeing trapped aliens. Several humans sustained injuries, but continued rescue efforts despite bleeding. Clevax, the Concordat security director, watched in stunned silence as humans carried injured aliens to safety, working twice as long as emergency responders from other species without rest breaks. "Now you see why some fear them," a voice said beside him. Clevax turned to find Grand Minister Ofthal observing the scene. "They're helping our people," Clevax noted. "Yes, while demonstrating physical capabilities that could easily be turned toward less benevolent purposes," Ofthal replied. "The Security Council meeting tomorrow will be contentious." Hours later, after the crisis had passed, Susan received a message requesting her presence at an emergency council meeting. When she arrived, representatives from 12 major species were already arguing loudly. "These humans must be more thoroughly restricted," insisted a gelatinous being that served as military coordinator. "Today they demonstrated crisis responsibilities that exceed our best emergency teams. Imagine those capabilities in a conflict scenario." "They saved 57 lives," countered Zixtal, now a vocal human ally. "Would you prefer those people had died rather than witness human strength?" Susan entered the chamber to sudden silence. She noticed several representatives move subtly away as she approached the central table. "Ambassador Clark," Ofthal acknowledged her. "We were discussing today's unfortunate incident." "Unfortunate and suspicious," Susan replied calmly. "Our investigation suggests the explosion was not accidental. The damage pattern indicates deliberate sabotage." Murmurs rippled through the room. "A serious accusation," Ofthal said carefully. "One backed by evidence my security team has already shared with Director Clevax," Susan continued. "Someone targeted an area primarily housing humans. Fortunately, our natural resilience meant fewer casualties than anticipated. The military." Coordinator's color darkened. "Even if true, today's events prove humans represent a biological classification beyond standard parameters. We recommend enhanced restrictions until proper containment protocols are established." "Containment?" Susan questioned sharply. "We are not a disease to be contained, Coordinator. We are people who just saved many of your citizens." Before the debate could escalate further, Clevax stepped forward. My preliminary investigation confirms Ambassador Clark's assessment. The explosion was deliberate, and given its location and timing, it appears to be an attempt to provoke human retaliation. Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. Someone wants to prove humans are dangerous, Susan said quietly. They attacked us, hoping we would respond with aggression, validating your fears. She stood straight, addressing the entire council. Earth did not seek this conflict. We came offering friendship and cooperation. Today, humans bled to save your people. Judge us by those actions, not by imagined threats. As the meeting adjourned without resolution, Zixtal approached Susan privately. You made an impression today, but this isn't over. There are factions that will never accept human integration. They believe your kind represents an evolutionary path too different from established concordate species. Susan nodded tiredly. Then we'll keep proving them wrong, one rescued alien at a time. Across the station, in a secure laboratory, a group of senior scientists reviewed data collected during the day's crisis. Heart rates, adrenaline responses, pain thresholds, and strength measurements from the human rescuers had been secretly recorded. Remarkable, one scientist murmured. Even their baseline capabilities exceed our emergency response units, and under stress conditions they show even greater enhancement. The lead researcher looked troubled. Continue the analysis. The full Council must understand exactly what we're dealing with. The humans cannot be allowed unrestricted access to concordate space until we develop effective countermeasures. The quiet conspiracy against humanity was growing, even as individual humans continued to build bridges across the stars. The UES Defender emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the concordate central system. The sleek vessel represented Earth's first military presence in concordate space, granted reluctant approval after the bombing incident 2 months earlier. On the bridge, General Laura Peterson studied the massive space station growing larger on the view screen. Standard approach vector, Lieutenant, she ordered calmly. Remember, we're here as a protective presence, not an aggressive one. The Defender had been designed to balance diplomacy and security. While obviously armed, its weapon systems were clearly defensive in nature. Earth's leadership had carefully considered the message they wanted to send. We can protect ourselves, but we come in peace. Across the station in the Science District, Dr. Paul Martinez stared at his laboratory screen in disbelief. As part of the Human Scientific Exchange Program, he had been granted limited access to concordate medical databases. While researching cross-species viral treatments, he had accidentally discovered something disturbing. This can't be right, he muttered, checking his findings again. According to the data trail he'd uncovered, someone had been collecting human genetic samples without consent. More concerning, these samples were being sent to a facility not listed in any official concordate registry. Paul hesitated, uncertain whom to trust with this information. Finally, he encrypted his findings and sent a secure message to both Ambassador Clark and Commander Rhodes. Unauthorized human genetic research discovered. Possible secret program studying human weaknesses. Need secure meeting immediately. In the diplomatic quarter, Ben Harris was engaged in delicate negotiations. As Earth's trade representative, he had spent months building relationships with moderate concordate members. Today, he was meeting with delegates from 7 species who had benefited from human partnerships. The agricultural techniques adapted from Earth have increased crop yields by 30% on our colony worlds, stated the plant-like Florian representative, tendrils waving gently. We support expanding human trade rights before their probationary period ends. My people value the human medical advances shared by Dr. West's team, added the gelatinous Melbari delegate. 3 previously fatal conditions are now treatable because of human biochemical approaches. Ben smiled diplomatically. Earth appreciates your support. We believe cooperation benefits everyone. Our differences should be viewed as complementary, strengths rather than reasons for separation. The meeting was interrupted by a station-wide announcement. Attention all diplomats. The Human Evaluation Committee will convene in 1 hour. Attendance is mandatory for all voting members. Ben excused himself and hurried to find Ambassador Clark. This unexpected committee meeting could only mean trouble. At the secure diplomatic communications center, Susan Clark, Eric Rhodes, and Dr. Martinez huddled around a private terminal. The timing is suspicious, Susan noted after reviewing Paul's discovery. An emergency committee meeting called just as we uncover unauthorized research on human genetics. Eric nodded grimly. This confirms my security team's findings. The restricted zones, the surveillance, they're studying us like laboratory. Specimens, not potential allies. It's worse than that, Paul explained. These experiments specifically focus on identifying exploitable weaknesses in human physiology, temperature thresholds, atmospheric sensitivities, possible chemical vulnerabilities. Their discussion was interrupted by Ben's arrival with news of the emergency committee meeting. We need to be careful how we approach this, Susan cautioned. Making public accusations without irrefutable proof could damage the progress we've made. As they debated their next move, General Peterson contacted them from the Defender. Ambassador, we're receiving unusual communications traffic throughout the Concordat network. Multiple species are mobilizing ships toward human colony outposts. Susan's expression hardened. It seems our discovery forced someone's hand. They're accelerating whatever plans they had. An hour later, Susan entered the Grand Committee chamber with her team. The circular room was filled with representatives from all 48 Concordat species arranged in tiered seating. Grand Minister Ophathal presided from the central platform. Susan immediately noticed the tense atmosphere and the absence of several known human allies, including Zixtal. This emergency session will address the human integration question, Ophathal announced formally. Recent developments have raised serious concerns about continued human presence in Concordat space. A tall, gray-skinned alien stepped forward. I am Trelvos, security coordinator for the Outer Rim sectors. We have evidence that humans are establishing unauthorized communications networks across Concordat territories. Murmurs spread through the assembly as Trelvos continued. Furthermore, the arrival of an armed Earth vessel violates the spirit of probationary membership. We recommend immediate quarantine of all human settlements until a complete security evaluation can be conducted. Susan stood to respond, but another delegate interrupted. The human genetic structure shows alarming adaptability. They could potentially survive on 19% of Concordat worlds without environmental suits. No other species has such capability. And this is presented as a threat? Susan finally spoke, her voice cutting through the growing noise. Adaptability is being treated as aggression. Resilience is viewed as danger. She stepped forward, facing the assembly directly. Yes, humans are different. We evolved on a planet you classify as a death world. But these differences are precisely why we can be valuable allies. Susan nodded to Paul, who activated a data projection. While we stand accused of violations, we have discovered an actual conspiracy. This evidence shows unauthorized collection of human genetic material for research aimed at finding our weaknesses. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Ophathal called for order repeatedly before Susan could continue. Additionally, we have detected fleet movements targeting human settlements, actions taken without full Concordat authorization. Trelvos rose again. These accusations are meant to distract from the real issue. Humans represent an evolutionary path too dangerous to allow unrestricted access to Concordat knowledge and resources. The debate might have escalated further if not for the sudden appearance of Zixtal, bursting into the chamber with several security officers. Forgive the interruption, Zixtal addressed the assembly, but we have uncovered evidence that cannot wait. Security Director Clevax has been investigating the bombing incident and traced it to a disturbing source. Clevax stepped forward. The attack on the human residential section was orchestrated by members of the Ancient Preservation Society, a secret faction led by Coordinator Trelvos. All eyes turned to the gray-skinned alien, who remained eerily calm. The Preservation. Society has existed since the Concordat's founding, Trelvos stated unapologetically. Our purpose is to maintain evolutionary balance. Throughout our history, species with unusual capabilities have disrupted this balance, leading to conflicts and extinctions. So you attacked innocent people to prove humans are dangerous? Susan asked incredulously. To demonstrate the threat before it grows uncontainable, Trelvos replied. Humans adapt too quickly, learn too eagerly, endure beyond normal parameters. Your kind would dominate within generations simply through your biological advantages. Grand. Minister Ofthal looked troubled. These accusations must be formally investigated. Until then, all restrictive actions against human settlements are suspended. As the session adjourned in chaos, General Peterson contacted Susan urgently. Ambassador, multiple ships are ignoring the stand-down order. They're still moving toward our outposts. Susan turned to her team. It seems Trelvos isn't the only one who fears us. The Preservation Society must have supporters throughout the Concordat. On the bridge of the Defender, General Peterson made a critical decision. The ship accelerated to faster than light speed, positioning itself between the approaching alien fleet and the vulnerable human settlement. Open communications to all vessels, she ordered. Broadcast on all Concordat frequencies. When the channel opened, she spoke clearly and firmly. This is General Laura Peterson of the UES Defender. We have detected your approach toward the human settlement on Proxima Colony. The Grand Committee has suspended all actions against human outposts pending investigation. Stand down immediately. There was no response as the alien vessels continued their approach. Laura nodded to her weapons officer. Activate defensive systems. Make them visible but do not target any ships. Let's show them our capabilities without firing a shot. The Defender's shield grid illuminated, and defensive weapon ports opened. A clear warning without direct aggression. For tense minutes, the human ship stood alone against 12 alien vessels. Then, one by one, the alien ships began to slow and eventually halt their approach. Back on Concordat Central, Susan and Ben worked frantically with alien allies to propose a compromise that might satisfy both sides. The future of humanity in the galaxy hung in the balance, caught between fear and opportunity. The Grand Assembly Hall of Concordat Central buzzed with tension. 2 weeks had passed since the standoff at Proxima Colony, and today the full assembly would vote on humanity's status within the galactic community. President Karen Wilson of the United Earth government had traveled to the station for this historic occasion, the first Earth head of state to leave the solar system. Karen sat beside Ambassador Susan Clark, watching representatives from dozens of alien civilizations file into the chamber. The human delegation occupied a more prominent position than during previous sessions, a small but meaningful change. How are we looking? Karen asked quietly. Susan's expression remained carefully neutral. We have firm support from 19 species, mostly those who've benefited directly from trade or medical partnerships. 12 are firmly opposed. The rest remain undecided or haven't revealed their positions. And the Preservation Society? Officially, disbanded after Trelvos was removed from his position, but his views aren't uncommon, especially among the older species. They genuinely fear what humans represent. Admiral John Miller, now promoted from his captain position after the first contact mission, joined them. The Defender reports all, quiet at our colonies. General Peterson has been diplomatic but firm. No further incidents since the standoff. The Grand Minister called the session to order. Velnara, a tall, blue-skinned Veldorian female, had replaced Ofthal after revelations of his passive support for the Preservation Society. Her 4 eyes surveyed the chamber before she spoke. Today we determine the future relationship between humanity and the Galactic Concordat. This decision will shape our shared destiny for generations to come. Velnara gestured to President Wilson. In recognition of this historic moment, we have invited Earth's leader to address the assembly before voting begins. Karen approached the central platform with measured steps. She was not a tall woman, but she carried herself with quiet confidence that commanded attention. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with various alien delegates before speaking. Respected representatives of the Concordat, I come before you not to demand, but to offer partnership. In the months since our first contact, we have learned much about each other. Some of what you've learned about humans has caused concern. I understand this fear. She paused, allowing her words to settle. Humans evolved on a world that challenged us at every turn. We faced predators, natural disasters, disease, and our own violent tendencies. These challenges shaped us into the species we are today, resilient, adaptable, and yes, capable of great physical feats compared to many of your peoples. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Karen continued. But the same evolutionary path that gave us physical strength also taught us the value of cooperation. Alone, a human is vulnerable. Together, we built civilizations. The same principle applies here on a galactic scale. She gestured toward the various alien delegations. Each species here brings unique strengths. The Veldorians' sensory perception, the Melbari's biochemical adaptability, the Florians' photosynthetic efficiency. These differences don't divide us. They complement us. Humans don't seek to dominate the concordate. We seek to contribute to it. Judge us not by what you fear we might become, but by what we have already done as guests in your community. As Karen returned to her seat, a commotion erupted at the chamber entrance. A breathless aide rushed in, conferring urgently with Minister Velnara. Her normally blue complexion paled visibly. We must temporarily suspend this session, Velnara announced. We've received an emergency distress signal from the Melbari colony in the Cygnus sector. A Class 9 solar flare has compromised their protective shields. Millions are at risk. The Melbari ambassador rose in alarm. Our people cannot survive direct stellar radiation. By the time rescue ships arrive, the defender is only 2 jump points away, Admiral Miller interjected, already checking his communication device. General Peterson reports they can reach the colony in under 3 hours. A single ship cannot evacuate an entire colony, argued a skeptical delegate. Dr. Lisa Kelly, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. The defender isn't going to evacuate, it's going to reinforce the radiation shields. All eyes turned to her as she continued. Earth developed advanced radiation shielding technology due to our own solar system's conditions. The defender carries emergency shield generators specifically designed for disaster response. For a moment, the chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Then Velnara spoke. Can your vessel truly protect an entire colony? It can buy enough time for evacuation ships to arrive, Admiral Miller confirmed. General Peterson requests immediate authorization to proceed. The Melbari ambassador's voice shook with emotion. On behalf of my people, I accept this assistance with deepest gratitude. As emergency protocols activated throughout the station, the human delegation huddled with key concordate officials to coordinate the response. For the next several hours, the assembly hall became an impromptu crisis center. Live feeds showed the defender positioning itself in orbit around the Melbari colony, deploying massive shield arrays to supplement the failing planetary defenses. The images captivated everyone present, a human vessel placing itself directly in the path of lethal solar radiation to protect an alien species that had, until recently, viewed humans with suspicion. When the first rescue ships arrived 6 hours later, the defender remained on station despite taking damage to its outer hull systems. General Peterson's voice came through clearly on the communication channel. Shields holding at 60%. Will maintain position until evacuation is complete. It took 3 more days for the crisis to fully resolve. When the assembly finally reconvened, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. The Melbari ambassador requested to speak first. My species exists today because humans risked their lives and their only military vessel to save us, he said simply. Actions speak more clearly than fears. I move that Earth be granted full membership status immediately. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 39 species voted in favor, with only 5 opposed and 4 abstentions. As the results appeared on the chamber's display screens, spontaneous applause broke out, a rare occurrence in the normally formal proceedings. Minister Velnara made it official. By the authority of this assembly, Earth is welcomed as the 49th full member species of the Galactic Concordate, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Later, at the formal reception, President Wilson found herself surrounded by alien representatives eager to establish or strengthen ties with Earth. Dr. Lisa Kelly, now appointed to head the new Center for Interspecies Cooperation, joined her, with Zixtal. Quite a change from 6 months ago, Lisa remarked. Remember when they could barely stand to be in the same room with us? Zixtal's scales shimmered with amusement. Fear can become respect when given proper context. Your people showed something remarkable, strength tempered by wisdom. Across the room, Admiral Miller was deep in conversation with representatives from several species interested in joint security initiatives. In another corner, Dr. Martinez discussed plans for a multi-species research facility with scientists from 5 different worlds. As the celebration continued, President Wilson stepped away briefly for a quiet moment. Through the station's massive viewport, she watched distant stars shining against the blackness of space. Somewhere out there, the Defender was returning home after its rescue mission, a symbol of humanity's new role in the galaxy. A soft voice spoke behind her. "It is beautiful, is it not?" Minister Velnara had joined her by the viewport. "Beautiful and vast," Karen agreed. "So much we still don't know." "That is why your people bring such value to our community," Velnara said thoughtfully. "You embrace the unknown without fear." Karen smiled. "Not without fear. We simply don't let fear stop us from moving forward." The minister's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a Veldorian expression of respect. "Perhaps that is the lesson your species brings to the stars. Not just your physical strength, but your courage to face what seems impossible." Together, they turned back toward the celebration, where humans and aliens mingled as equals for the first time. The panic had subsided, replaced by possibility. A new era of galactic history had begun,